Welcome to Profits Through Podcasting, the show for entrepreneurs with podcasts who want to monetize by generating leads and profits for their business from podcasting. I'm your host, Joel Oliver, CEO of East Coast Studio. Whether it's outsourcing your podcast production or handing over your entire business, there's a lot to think about when delegating. But whether it's a simple task or something more complex, delegation is key when it comes to growing your business and creating the life you want. You simply can't do everything on your own. Trading your time for money only gets you so far. Some people struggle with delegation, making claims like it's impossible to find good help. But today's guest runs multiple seven-figure businesses and says he isn't even that busy. He goes to bed early every night, has never had to fire anybody. He makes it sound easy. Dr. Justin Rabinowitz is a rehab chiropractor turned business coach. He founded his practice, Strive to Move, in 2015 and has since used his learnings to teach others how to build and grow their business just like he did. Today we hear how Justin went from working in his practice to working on it, how he developed the business skills needed to get where he is now, since they don't teach that in chiro schools, and how Justin's podcast, Business School for the Rehab Chiropractor, is one of his main sources of leads for his Rehab Chiro coach business. So, Justin, you've got, if I got this right, you're coming up on 2 years of podcasting. Does it sound correct?
Yeah, about 2 years, maybe even a little bit longer. Yep.
Okay. So I was reading into the business, the Rehab Chiro business. You started that in 2021?
Yeah, so I'm a trained chiropractor, graduated chiropractic school in 2012, and for better part of a decade, I built my practice, and fortunately, it's gone really well to the point that now other people were coming to me for advice on how to do that, and so we leveraged that and parlayed it into a consulting, coaching, mastermind business, and so we basically now, at the most basic level, take what I did in the practice and now teach other people all over the US, Canada, and even a little bit in Australia how to do what we've done. And we've used the podcast to be able to leverage that. The mastermind business, specifically the coaching business, people ask me how we get clients and customers. I tell them two things: Instagram and podcast. And so those are the two areas that I would say today have built the business. And, I'm in New Jersey, but we have reach in Canada, the West Coast, Australia. So it gets out that way. And the two channels would be, social media, Instagram, and then podcasting.
Great. When you were about to start the podcast, did you have that in mind? Like, this is going to help with leads? Or did you just think, well, we should probably just do it? Like, was there any reason or goal specifically behind starting?
I think one of my business philosophies is I look at people that have done or are doing what I want to do. And in 2022, 3, 4, 5, everyone and anyone that's worth their salt has a podcast. So, again, there wasn't much thought on it. It was just like, this is what needs to happen. So we did it.
Yeah, it's almost, in a way, people expect you to have one if you're in a certain industry where they want to follow along with you. And if you don't have one, that seems a bit strange these days. It's like not having a Facebook.
Absolutely.
Content-wise for you, is it mostly solo or is it interviews? What are you actually putting out there in the episodes?
It's a good question. And it's something we've changed. So from a content perspective, I'm actually pretty good at putting the headphones on 6 a.m. and I just start talking, and it turns out pretty well. It's logistically easier because I don't have to organize anything. I don't have to set up an interview, a Zoom, and all of that. And so the majority of our podcast for a long time were solo episodes that I was doing. And one of my long-term clients about 3 months ago reached out and said, you've done interviews in the past with other members, and I really enjoyed them hearing their stories and going through it. And so I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you should do it. And so if you go to my podcast, you'll see 80, 90 episodes. There might be 6 or 7 interviews, but then in the last 10 or 12, the majority have been interviews and stories of people that are in my group and, the trials and tribulations and success stories. So we've actually moved more into interview style recently.
Great. Okay. So we see different models. Everybody's situation's a bit different. Some practice owners who branch out into consulting, they do so with the intention of leaving the practice altogether. Now, you said you had spent about 10 years building a practice and then you started this coaching business to share that knowledge. Are you still actively involved with the practice now, or is it just coaching?
I am what I like to call nose in, knees out, where I'm still an advisor. We just finished our team meeting. I'm in the office right now. I still work with two managing partners to do all the things necessary to lead and grow the business. But as far as actual doing the thing and the treatment and the marketing and the sales within the business, I'm out of that 99.9%. I have one patient that I treat once every other month, and that's about it.
When you went into that coaching realm, was it you wanted to get away from the treatment side, that type of thing? Or it was just like, I can only do so much with my time this way, and I want to grow a business?
I think the second thing you said, Joel, is huge, because probably the biggest challenge as entrepreneurs that we get very excited and have a lot of different ideas. But one of the lessons I learned early on from my mentor, who was a physical therapist in England and moved into coaching, he said one time to me, I asked him a very similar question, and he said, every hour I spend in the practice at this point, I'm losing money. And it was such a good lesson, because I think so many people are very disciplined, and we think disciplined and motivated means that we should continue to do more. But the nuance of that is understanding with focus that oftentimes the discipline is in doing less and focusing more on the thing. And so one of the unique and competitive advantages that I have, and the reason why our business has grown as quickly as it has, is because I don't have to be distracted by the practice and the business. It's not that I don't like treating patients. It's not that I don't love the business. I mean, everything that we have is built on the foundation of the practice. But I understood from a focus standpoint that there's only so many things I could focus on at once, which was, if I wanted to go all in, I needed to pick and choose what I was going to go all in on. And if I'm going to give other people advice, I want to make sure that I'm giving the proper advice to them, that I'm following myself. And that is exactly what's happening.
Right. Yeah. You can only get so far trading your time for money. So if you're doing something like that, and that's not, some people want to do it that way, but if you're treating patients and just working at the practice or in the practice all day, you can only go so far. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, a bit about the Rehab Chiro business, since that's what you're actively doing, you're living that way and teaching that to others. Who is your ideal client for that? What are you offering to them, and how are you delivering it?
Yeah. So our ideal client, we always talk about, is typically practitioners that have gone to school, looked at the typical chiropractic model and thought, I just want to do more. Usually that means, as a Rehab Chiro, using air quotes, that they do the typical things you would think of a chiropractor, the adjustments and the hands-on therapy, but they also like to do exercise and rehab and really progress a patient through actively into whatever goals that they have. The problem is that they get into practice and they don't understand how to run the business side of that style of practice. Because if you're going to run a higher level of business with higher level of care, you need to charge more. You usually don't take insurance. You need to have a sales process. You need a marketing plan. You need to hire and build team. And that hasn't been taught, and no one else is doing it. And so typically what happens in my industry is that these people get out, they start their own practice, they get going, they put their head down, they work really hard. Their prices are not correct, and they build a business. But what happens is they look up one day and they're fully booked and they're not making much money. And so they've officially run out of time and aren't making enough money. And they look up and say, for the rest of my career, am I just going to do this? What else is out there? So there's got to be a different way. And that's when they find me. And so what we help them do is we have a course. The first entry point into our world is called ChiroBiz 101, which is literally the 101. It's a 7-week course on exactly how we built this business: marketing, sales process, finance, KPIs, core values, business structure, and skills. And we walk them through all of that. And then once they get through that program, we have a long-term coaching program to help them build and grow. And we just continually evolve with them as their business needs grow.
Got it. So a quick question on something you mentioned there. Say a chiropractor gets their education and they start a practice. Are you getting any training business-wise during that education, or is kind of strictly the treatment side of things? And then if you want to get into this type of business, you need someone like you to teach them. Like, how does that look, and how did it look for you? Did you have any business background training?
No. As a chiropractor in any medical profession, really, you learn to be a doctor, you learn to treat patients. They basically teach you how to not be dangerous, which is the minimum viable product to pass your boards and get out and practice. And then in order to be good at anything in life, podcasting, author, basketball player, you're going to need to do more and extra. And so you're not going to get good business education at chiropractic school. And I don't think you should. But again, like anything in life, if you want to be world class, you're going to have to find and study mentorship and coaching in different aspects to build and grow whatever you're looking to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. So would you say you're talking to rehab chiros or people who may want to become one?
What people tell me is, for the most part, they know the type of doctor they want to be and the type of business they want to build. It is Rehab Chiro, but they don't understand how to actually do it in a way that will be a business opportunity for them. And the ones that resonate with my message, what I've heard before, they say like, you're the first person that's spoken in a way that you understand me and the problems that I'm going through. And there are other mentorship groups and coaching programs in chiropractic, but there were none specific to my audience. And so I built this coaching program very selfishly around what I wished I would have had. And there are many other people, as we're finding out, just like me, that there was no other coaching program or mentorship or business that resonated with them to be able to understand the clinical skills and the business skills. And, sort of our motto as a Rehab Chiro is world-class clinical skills and world-class business skills. And for the most part, you either get one or the other. And I just didn't believe that was possible or true, basically.
Right. And so in the podcast, you're basically giving away as much free value as you can, like walking people through a lot of this stuff, but they come to get the course, obviously, to get the real deal all in one place and maybe go into your mastermind.
Yeah. So my mentor talks about the philosophy on that side of the business, which is really useful. He says, I give away all my content for free. What you pay me for is implementation. I get so many people that they listen to my podcast and it's unbelievable. And this is just human nature. I've listened to everything you've said and I know I should do it, but I haven't done it yet. And then they pay me in the course and all of a sudden it's like, now we go and implement. And so I give it away, but all of us need coaches. All of us need mentors. All of us need people in our lives that can do it. Even with your service, Joel, I had a podcast years ago for my clinical practice. And we produced it internally. But it was like, let me go to an expert for this one. Like, let me go to someone else who can do it. And we can get someone, take it off our plate that, we can send it out to that we trust. It's going to be able to help us in that process. And so even early on, I remember with you, the first couple conversations we had via email, you're sending me, this is what needs to happen. Here's the different options. Here's how we need to do it. It's like, good. Like I'm a coach. So I know I need to be coached as well. So I wanted to be coached by someone like you who does it for dozens and dozens and dozens of people.
Mm-hmm. Now, very clearly up front, you mentioned essentially you're getting leads through Instagram, social media, and the podcast. You're very, very clear on that. Do you track data with some kind of analytics tools, or is just you're hearing from people? How do you know confidently that this is where the people are coming from?
Well, we track our statistics on the podcast site to see like where we're being listened to and how many downloads we're getting like that. But when we get people on like sales calls or they get in our world, they'll always say, I follow them on social media and I've listened to the podcast. I've been a listener for a long time, to the point that if someone came in my world and never heard a podcast, we would probably send them there first because they're not really a qualified buyer at that point. I mean, it's such a low barrier of entry, which such high value. And oftentimes we tell people, if you're interested, but don't want to spend the money with me yet, like start there. It's a great place to start.
Got it. Okay. So with a look at the marketing funnel, let's say we've got social media in the podcast. Are you doing anything else outside of that to reach new people and nurture those leads till they're ready to buy? Or is that's like the main focus is those things we just touched on?
Yeah. So we are very big at engaging in Instagram, podcasting, and we track that. And then we collect leads in the database. And then we have a CRM platform where we do text messaging and emails. In addition to that, still tried and true, old school referral-based marketing. In Q3, typically every year, we run a referral campaign, a contest. And it's actually worked really well and we make it pretty worth their while, where for the whole quarter, any of our members can, if they refer a client that ends up signing up with our program, they are entered in to win $5,000 and a trip to our mastermind. And so our program, our Chirobiz 101 program is $5,000. So as soon as someone gets a referral, like it's a wash. And so last year we did that. The person that won sent us like 4 or 5 referrals. And so we got 5 clients and he got a trip and $5,000 out of it. So we do that. That's a program that's worked very, very well for us. And we also run live events. We have a live event in May and we run 3 a year where we sell guest passes where people can come in person and see what it's all about. Because, with the digital age we're living in, I think one of the things that separates us is that we still have an in-person component. So podcasts are great, video is great, but we bring people in the flesh, hanging out. So we really do try to utilize many different aspects and platforms and whatever is out there to help generate our business and get our name in the news, so to speak.
Nice. Was that something you envisioned from the beginning? I assume when you're just starting out with a business like this, you can't have that right away. Like it takes at least a while to grow the audience size to where you can actually do a live event and people show up. Or was that something from the start that you did?
I knew the direction I was going. I think I started with the idea of my business philosophy when you asked me about starting a podcast. When I started the podcast, because other people that were doing what I wanted to do had a podcast, so I started a podcast. Other people that were in this coaching space, the ones that did it the best were the ones that not only had an online component, but they also had an in-person component. And so I knew that that was a thing that would separate, mostly because it's hard to do. Like people in business, this is easy. And I mean that it's easy relative where I can open up my computer and get clients and it's great. And everyone wants a digital business, but who's willing to put on the event? First event I had, Joel, was in New Jersey and we had 25 people attend. And that was cool. We had people from all over the country traveling. I was like, holy crap. The last one we did was in San Diego in January. We had 125. And this live event coming up in May, we have a guy you may have heard of. His name is Mike Michalowicz. He's a best-selling author. He wrote Profit First, Pumpkin Plan. And so I think we're done 7 or 8 live events, and every one we try to step up a little bit more and deliver a world-class experience. And so the idea was always there. They've grown tremendously, and now we hire staff specifically to help put these live events on. So it's something that's a big part. And I think just from a business standpoint, it is something that separates us because like anyone can start a podcast. Not many people do it for a long time. Anyone can start a coaching company, but not many will do the event side. So it's like, that's kind of the niche and the idea for me in business.
That's great to hear that growth. If you go from nothing to say 25 people showing up, that's really cool. And then to get it to 125, that's amazing. So you mentioned a bit about you had some feedback from someone who said they'd like to hear more from your clients on the podcast. Was there anything you learned along the way that helped you optimize how you were doing things to help the podcast serve the business better? Or was it just you've been doing the show and putting your message in there, promoting what's coming up and kind of the same since you started?
I think as the business has grown and we get more clients, I always say we don't make it up. And so the podcasts that I come out with typically are conversations that I'm having, things that my clients are struggling with, objections that we might get during the sales process. And so as the podcast has evolved, the business has evolved, we've got more clients in, and with more clients, they encounter more problems and issues. And with that, podcasts almost become easier the more you do it. And, it's a marketing lesson that I teach everyone is let's not make it up. Let's talk about topics that resonate with people. The other thing with that from an evolution standpoint is I do go back and look at the most downloaded episodes and some of the episodes that do very well. And I want to see the trends, the headlines, or is it guests, or what is it that has drawn people to it? And I use those as clues to continue to produce content that is very similar, if not the same. The podcast that literally went out today was the title of the podcast was based on the most downloaded podcast I had. I basically kind of rinsed and repeated with a new take on it, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very smart. In terms of the system that you have in place for the podcast specifically, how are you doing that? How are you keeping everything organized? You said you like to just get up early and do some recording sometimes, but in terms of what ideas might come up with these conversations you have, you want to keep track of them and schedule things. How does that look for you?
Not as good as it should. And it's, again, a lesson that I've taught. Luckily for me, I built this business and my schedule where I can do things like kind of when I want, but that is not very efficient. And there have been times typically on a Monday where I will record a podcast. And just from a time perspective, it's a blocked out hour of my time. I was traveling for an event and I had an event coming up and I knew I wasn't going to have time to do that. And I woke up one morning at like 4 a.m. and I spent the next 2 hours recording, and I recorded like 6 podcasts. And I cut my time in half, and then I sent them all to you, and then you got them to us as necessary. And so something from my own growth standpoint of looking at is to figure out how to become more efficient with it.
Makes sense. Curious too, when you're doing these solo episodes, do you have to do a whole lot of prep to compile your thoughts beforehand, or you just hit record and go?
I wouldn't say I'm the best at creating content, but the one thing I am is consistent. And so when I say that I've been doing content and videos and writing and speaking for like 12 years, basically every single day, that is not an exaggeration. So when I get on a podcast and talk, I don't have to rehearse. I don't really have to write many ideas down, like sometimes nothing. Most of the time it's nothing, because I just recount the conversations that I had and give my insight into it. And, that was what a mentor spoke to me about years ago, was that like when you understand something at such a level, you can have the conversation about it and speak about it because it's like what you know. And so we all have stuff that we know. It could be football, it could be music, where we can just talk about it. For me, it's business, it's marketing, it's sales, because I do it all the time. I love it. I'm invested in it. And so I don't need to prep very much because I'm just having conversations and speaking about what's literally going on in my life and in my business.
Yeah, makes sense. So as we start to wrap up here, I'm curious, this business we focused on today isn't your only business. You've got other things going on as well. We touched a little earlier on time management and how to get out of your business and work on it. Many people find that just a single business can be a handful. Even if they manage to get that going, it still takes a lot out of them. How have you managed to find time to do all of these things that you're doing, like multiple business that are successful? Do you not sleep?
No, I sleep a lot, actually. I literally go to bed at 8:30 and I wake up at 5 or 6. And so we do get a lot of sleep in my house. And we've actually gotten more sleep since we've had our baby is 18 months old. She's not a baby anymore, but she goes down at 6 and we're not too far behind after that. So my mentor always says, you build the people build the business. And when I coach people, the most challenging part of it is when they're solopreneurs and doing their thing, to get them to accept that the business is only going to grow as far as they do, and to understand that it has to grow through people. So many times in my life, I've recognized that it is always about the people. And I can give you a quick story because I was sharing with my team. So yes, I have my chiropractic practice, Strive to Move, and I have this coaching business. And in my world, the coaching business is 90%, Strive to Move is 8%. There's another 2% of work. I also now own real estate. So I have a few properties. When I started getting into that, the conversation that I had with myself and the promise I made was that I was not going to get involved in it. And it's not worth it for me to spend time doing something and lose focus because it's not my bread and butter. It's not how I make a living. It's not how I'm going to build my life. It's a good investment. It's a good opportunity, but there's a cost to it. And so going back to people, I found a person who's been amazing, who is an entrepreneur himself. He's a property manager. He's a realtor. He's a construction guy. And literally when we started the process, I was like, listen, this is the deal. I have my businesses. Like, I'm going to use you to find the property. When you tell me to find this, use this lawyer, I'm going to use this lawyer. When you title agency this, like, just tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to trust that you're going to do the right thing. And that's exactly how it played out. And so we just bought a property about a month ago, and my total time invested with looking at properties, doing everything, was under 5 or 6 hours, because at every step of the way, it was, okay, go make the offer. Good. Offer accepted. Who should I use for a mortgage? Good. Lawyer. Good. Title. And so I refused to kind of get involved in things because it was going to be a waste of my time. And for me, that's the discipline in A, finding the people, but B, being strict with saying, yeah, maybe I could find my own lawyer that might be a couple $100 cheaper, or find this person that's a little bit cheaper. But the time spent is so valuable that I'm not willing to do that. And so for me, and I just taught my team this, just that life philosophy of zooming out and saying, what is my time worth? And then how am I willing to spend it? Busy is a choice. People always say, Justin, I'm sure you're busy. I'm like, I'm not that busy. Don't insult me. I choose not to be, right? And I tell my team all the time, and they're great with it. It's like, listen, guys, I'm going to protect you from a lot of stuff that happens in the business, payroll and this and that. There's a lot of stress that I take on. But in exchange, you have to protect me. Don't get me involved in the BS. There's a lot of stuff that happens that they know, like Justin doesn't need to know about it. And so I think that building that discipline personally, and then now with people in my business, that we are a team. How about we all do what's best for each other so that we can grow? And that's just the philosophy that I'm bringing to my business and my personal life as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent insight. Final thing here, I think a roadblock or a barrier a lot of people would encounter when faced with this, they may know, hey, I've got to delegate and I've got to build a team, but I just can't find good people. And maybe that is a real challenge, but I think for some people, it's probably their own mindset. Like, I can't find someone that's reliable, or I have to do that myself. Those types of things. Clearly, those thoughts don't enter your mind. So what advice would you give on that?
I hold two opposing thoughts in my head at the same time, and they're both true. And so the first thing I would say is when I say like, I'm special, like I'm important, like I mean something in this world, like I mean that. But at the same time, I also look at it and say, I'm not that special, meaning that there are millions of other people that have figured out how to bring on good people and hire them, and they have really good people around them. And so why would I be the one who couldn't do it? And my business and life philosophy is like, I'm looking at people around me and I'm always looking at them and saying like, if he or she can do it, why not me? If it's possible, then I can do it. There is a path forward. I know I can do it. I might not know how to lead and write systems and processes yet and do that properly. Like that's a thing, but that can be fixed. I might not know how to interview. Great. That's a thing and that can be fixed. I might not know how to find good people, or, what if success was that I have to go through 3 or 4 first before I find the good one? There's things in life. I was a baseball player. They say you'll make the Hall of Fame if you fail 7 out of 10 times. But a lot of times in work stuff with hiring, we find one person and they can't do a good job. And all of a sudden we say, everyone sucks. And it's like, well, that's like one person. I've never had to fire anyone in my company, which has been really cool. And we've never had anyone quit. That's been a really good work culture. But I always say the day that happens, which again, it's going to happen, I'm not going to be upset or mad. I mean, I'm going to be upset personally, but this is life. This happens. Again, I'm a person. I'm like everybody else. I'm not that special. And so I just recognize that this is part of the deal. And the outcome I'm looking for me is like, I want to build a life, like at the end of the day, that I have autonomy, that I can make decisions. And for me, it's very exciting. And I get so much fulfillment out of building people. And so if I have to go through a couple bad hires or having hard conversations or whatever that takes to find people, I'm going to do it. When my staff comes to me and says, sometimes Justin believed in me and I didn't even believe in myself, I love to hear that. And we all need those people in our life. And so if I can be that person for my team, then I'm going to do it. But I think, at the end of the day, I'm not perfect. So why would I expect my team to be? And honestly, with like clients too, what I tell everyone is go fast. It's okay to make a mistake. Don't be reckless. From a business perspective, like what's the worst that's going to happen? The people that don't give you a chance and they're just jerks, like you probably didn't want them in the first place. And so again, I just look at it and say, there are very capable people out there. I might not have found them yet. I might have interviewed them well. And I also understand that business, there will be mistakes and it's okay. Like it's okay. We're all going to be fine. We're all going to wake up tomorrow and we have another chance to fix it. And so that's just the philosophy that I have, understanding that if I want to build this and get here, I can't skip steps. There's only one way possible to do it.
Great. Well, Justin Rabinowitz, rehabchirocoach.com. Great talking to you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Join us again next time on Profits Through Podcasting for more tips on how to turn your podcast into a lead and revenue generation machine for your business. And if you're ready to let a team of professionals handle your entire podcast production workflow so you can focus on the most important tasks in your business, visit eastcoaststudio.com/apply.